What's up, everyone? Raid just actually released the update 5.2. So there's been talk that it's coming. There's a little bit of teasers, but this is now official and what's coming. So we're just going to break it down. So what is actually coming? So I feel like it's going to come. Usually they'd like to do releases beginning of the week. So I feel like this will come early next week, roughly around the time that the fusion will take place and get started. But there are a few things that are coming that I think will definitely help for a lot of us that are just struggling to get over that next step. For us that are just pulling our hair out for how long certain things take. There's a lot of quality of life improvements and changes. So let's start with the first one. Tavern improvements. So, there's been lots of talk. A lot of content creators have been talking about this. How can we make this any better? And so it does get very messy, right? We have hundreds upon thousands of scrolls that are in our tavern here. So, if we want to level up a champion, we got to scroll and click them and scroll and scroll and scroll until we get through all of these champions before we find all of these brews that happen to be here. 500 of them. So, there's 1,000, 2,000 plus brews that are being taken up. So instead of click, in order to fill these up and then watch the animation and go and go and go. So what are they actually doing about that? So they are having a filter now for these brews. So the first thing is we're going to be able to show upgradable only filter, which is going to hide any champion who is not eligible to be upgraded. So for example, if they're 60 and already upgraded and they're maxed, we're not going to see these champions no more. That means, though, it will only show champions who have not reached max level for their rank. So any of those 50 champions at 5-star, 40 champions at 4-star, 30 champions at 3-star, you won't see anymore. You'll only see like the 29s and unders that you'll end up kind of seeing when you click this upgradable tab. So that comes in handy if you got like here. So if I want to upgrade this champion and upgrade rank, I see all my 40s. So all of these 40s all of a sudden will disappear, and I'm only going to see those that are 38 and under to be upgraded. However, it says here as you scroll down, don't forget to unclick the filter after you're done, because if you want to use your max level 30s to upgrade another 30 because you have a ton of maxed out chickens because you've done it for an event or something, you have to uncheck that box in order to see them all again. Then you'll have to use it. So the good thing is you can switch to descending order now. So if you want to use those 30s, you don't have to scroll through all your 60s, 50s, and 40s to get to the 30s or your 3-star champions. You can just flip the order and start from the bottom and pick those 30 champions, and it's a lot easier to navigate. So this alone, I think, is going to be huge. Same with upgrading skills. It's going to hide champions who have fully upgraded. Same with ascensions. If they're 6-star fully ascended, 5-star, 4-star, whatever, fully ascended, when you click the ascension tab, they're not even going to appear. So that automatically by default is going to weed out a lot of the scrolling and a lot of the time it takes to just go find the one that you want in order to deal with it. All XP brews are going to be grouped into a single slot. So no longer 2,000 slots are being taken up. There are only going to be 4 slots taken up, or 5 with the barrels. So you won't have to scroll through dozens. When they're selected, you're going to get a slider to regulate how many brews you wish to consume. You can go straight to max and use the max amount of brews. This alone, tavern improvement is going to be huge. It's going to save so much time, and it's something that I know a lot of people have been asking for. The second part of that change is a team setup. So right now, We're going to expand the saved slots in the general slots, which right now is Campaign, Dungeon, and the Demon Lord. But now we're going to get one for Doom Tower and one for Faction Wars. So I know that there's a lot of pre-set up Doom Tower teams. I know I have one for the waves. But I always have to change my boss battles because I don't have enough space. Now I can have, a dragon boss, a Brommel boss, a Dark Fae team. I can have all of these teams for all of these Scarab King. I can preset them all. Whereas before we couldn't do that because I would have to sacrifice some of my other dungeon teams. Because of that, I'm actually opening up some of my spaces now. I can actually create a campaign team and put my chickens in that campaign team to change the order of my skills to adjust that AI, right? So it opens up the usability of certain. You get to prioritize those AI skills to help you through those campaigns if you're still struggling. Dungeons, of course, is still the same. Demon Lord, kind of wish they did like a boss one. So, we only really need, 2 for a Demon Lord? Teams at the most, maybe 3 for some people. But you're opening up because now Doom Tower is going to have their own set. And then, of course, Hydra still keeps their own. And PvP now, we already know, has their own. So it's going to stay. However, each of the categories are now going to go up 5 spots. So we're automatically going to get 5 spots per. But we're also going to get new streams. So this alone is going to help us preset. And you know what? When you got to wait 2 months before Dark Fae comes back, at least you can preset your teams. You don't have to remember, what did I do 2 months ago? And what team did I use that I actually were able to kill it and refigure it out? Now you can just preset the team, keep it saved, tweak it for affinity, and go from there. The other big piece of that is whenever you remove a champ from the slot, the slot will stay open without the rest of the team shifting. It can get quite annoying, that's an understatement, to reselect the whole team just to give it to a new leader. We get to our presets, we go to team select. Okay, you know what? I'm going to change this team up. I no longer want Duchess in the lead. I want somebody else in the lead. When you unclick Duchess, everyone shifts. So if I can't drag and drop these characters to move them, these champs to move them, what I need to then do is say, oh, you know what? I got to put the new person in the lead. That means I got to go to the next champion, undo it, redo it. I got to go to the next champion, undo it, redo it. Then I go to the next champion, undo it, redo it. And now I got my team set up. But because of that, I just lost my AI setup as well because I undid it and refreshed it all. So now I got to reset that up as well. So team setup alone is going to, I think, help us. Now, Arena Upgrade. I think this is going to help some of the people that are struggling. For somebody like myself, I'm not a Platinum player by no means. But what's going to happen now is Platinum is going to move from 300 to 500 players, which means more people are going to have an opportunity to get to Platinum, which is going to be good. In saying that, there's going to be a new tier called Gold 5. So there's a ton of people in Gold 4 right now. And I know that there's people struggling to get to Gold 4. But by adding a Gold 5 is going to shift the balance, if you will, of those people that I'm constantly in the 35 to 3,800 point range. But I'm still in 4. So what benefit is that for me to push that hard if I can just spend, be at a low 3,100 or 2,900 even and get the same amount of points. Now, there's that kind of benefit to get to that next step of Gold 5 before Platinum. Therefore, I would have to assume, it doesn't say it here, but I would have to assume that when you're in Gold 4, you're actually getting more gold bars, which would help you deal with your Great Hall better, getting more clan versus clan points, and so on and so forth. So I would hope that being in Gold 5 versus Gold 4 brings you that. If you're getting 7 in Platinum to 8, then I'm hoping that you're getting more in Gold 5 as well. So, that's good. Super Raids in Doom Tower. We know that super raids currently you're able to use 2 times the energy and you get 2 times the rewards. The good thing is that we're saving some time in Doom Tower, right? Some of those bosses can take 15, 20, even 30 minutes to complete. Bommel, for example, you're using a Burgani only, and it's taking you hours upon hour, or 20 to 30 minutes to complete solo by doing 1,000 damage a hit. But at least if we can super raid that 2 times we're going to use 2 keys to do it. We're going to get 2 times the rewards now, and it's going to make it that much more efficient. So I think this will help. Big bold down here. This is not available for every rotation, which kind of sucks. But it's going to be available for a full month. So for a full month, we're going to be able to use those super raids for that one rotation. Honestly, once we get exposed to this and the next rotation doesn't have it, I think Plarium's going to hear about it and they're going to kind of turn it on and say, fine, we'll turn it on. I honestly don't know why they just don't keep it on altogether. Just saving people time in the game. But anyways. A couple of champion balances here. So Thea the Tomb Angel, or Thea the Vault Guardian, however you want to call her. Her base and speed is going to increase by 10. That's kind of big. 95 is huge. Also, she's getting an aura of all battles attack by 30%, which is great. So right now she doesn't have an aura. So she already hits hard, and we already know that. Now she's going to get a 30% all battle attack aura on top of that, and it's just going to make her that much usable and hit that much harder. Also, all her skills are moving down 1 turn, so that perfect veil is going to turn into a 5 turn, so book to a 4 turn cooldown. This nuke, which is her hardest hitting nuke, is currently going to go down to a 5 turn. When booked, it will go down to a 4 turn cooldown, and then that's about it. So we're reducing that skill cooldown and making her more viable. She actually doesn't need that many books. If you get lucky, you can book her for 2 books and be done with it, which is awesome. Now, Baistos, again, increasing speed by 6. Couple of skill changing. So the new version is an all attack enemies with a 75 versus 50% chance of blocking active skills for 2 turns. We're increasing that, booking it to 100%, which is great. And then the A3 here. That was the unascended version. Now the ascended version, increasing it to 100% decreased defense and 100% block from the old version of 50% and 50%. So we're now booking him to 100%, and this skill is actually very good. And then his A2 crits, 100% crit when they have a block active skill. So you don't have to build crit rate on him. Just build accuracy and crit damage. And now he becomes a very viable nuker. New change here. So we're actually going to get an increase and a decreased resistance buff. We already know that resistance is huge, especially in arena. And the resistance of some of our Doom Tower champions is just crazy, especially on hard mode. You need 600 accuracy just to land something a little bit of the time. Like, it's crazy as you get to the bosses. Without increased accuracy buff, it almost makes it unusable to kill these bosses. But now we have a decrease and an increased resistance buff, which is going to be huge, especially for people with, heavy resistance. 700, 500 resistance in the arena now turns into 750 by default. So we can play around with different skills now and stats to really make this buff more viable. And same with the the decrease, right? When a boss has 300, 400, 500 resistance, bringing that down to 250 means we don't need as much accuracy. So we're able to actually survive for some of these turns, respectively, which is good. And now some of these champions that are actually coming out are having that new resistance skills incorporated. However, there's no mention of previous champions having this resistance added to them. I feel like maybe 5.21 or 5.22 will have some of those tweaks to just reshift and rebalance to give more champions these resistance buffs. But for right now, we have these champions. So Archbishop, Pinthroid. The one thing I actually noticed with all of these new champions, they're actually quite decent. So for this one, transfers one random debuff from this champ, and then 75% of stealing a random buff. You know, not booked, so that's the way it stays. It's still random. Yeah, if they got one, fine. It's an A1 at the end of the day, so if we're counterattacking, ally attacking, they're constantly going. I think, you know, you have the opportunity of constantly pushing those debuffs off if you have multiples, which is fine. A2, increase accuracy, which is always great on all allies, then attacks. And then places a heal reduction on them, and then a block buffs. So, like, they're doing a lot of stuff. And only the champions from Demon Spawn, Undead, or Night Revs cannot resist. So they are resistible, booked to 100%, which is less likely to be resisted. But if they are from these champions, they can't be resisted. So honestly, like, this additional term doesn't really affect what the champ does. He still does a lot of cool things. Heal reduction. You know, if you have a Venom Mage on the team, heal reduction actually reduces damage. Venom Mage doesn't have to place it. Anyone can place it. So heal reduction is actually not bad, especially for bosses like that heal when being attacked, like Nether Spider kind of thing. You know, when the side adds attack or counter attack, I should say, they heal the boss. So heal reduction is actually quite good. Increased accuracy helps you land stuff, and a block buffs on top of that. Like this, I see is Hydra. It's pretty good for Hydra. Heals all allies, so it's a big heal of 30% of their HP, puts an increased defense on all allies, and if 4 or more are alive, also pushes a sealed for 2 turns equal to 30% of their HP. So if you have them on a team with all HP champs, HP based champs, we're getting some juicy shields with some juicy heals as well. And then remove all decreased defense debuffs and weaken debuffs from this champ at the start of every turn. So, you know, AoE decreased defense and weaken can never sit on this champion. There's no cooldown on the skill, so it's always. He'll never have decreased defense and weaken on him. And then an all battle accuracy by 50. So, like, quite decent of a champion if you think about it. This A1 ain't mediocre, but does have a heal, does have an all enemy attack, and a lot of buffs. So a very viable champion here, especially I could see in Hydra. Yumiko, by far, I think one of the best champions, arguably one of the best champions that is coming into this game. She is a Void Legendary. We already know how hard Void Legendaries are to get. And pairs with the new fusion, Karato. But, you know, if you can pull her and do the fusion, I think it's going to be a pretty darn decent combo. So what is she? An A1 double hitter, steals 7.5, so up to 14% turn meter if she's full. So stealing 14% turn meter on each hit, and then also heals this champion by 30% of the damage if she's under. So if she's over 50%, she's stealing turn meter. If she's under 50%, she's healing herself, which is good. So she's at like 40%, smack, she's now over 50%, steal, and go on from there. So I think, you know, it's situational if you want her to heal or if you want her to steal. Obviously for bosses, you know, she doesn't steal for the most part. So keeping her low to get her back up, I think is a good combination. Destiny's Mirror attacks one enemy. It's only one enemy. 80 booked up to 100% chance to place a debuff for 3 turns, which is great. However, her passive here on this skill is whenever they try to place a debuff on anybody on your team, 55% booked up to 75% chance of transferring those debuffs back to a random enemy who's under Hex, placed by this champion. Okay, this happens before any debuffs are placed on the initial target. So I can't, if I try to place a decreased defense on you or a poison on you, it's going to get pushed back to that champion right away. So there will be no effect on you if they're under hex placed by this champion. And this champion can place hex only by this skill, which is a single target hit. So on a 3-turn cooldown, you're probably going to want to be pairing her with a skill reducing champion like a Kaimar or a Renegade, or put her in Relentless, or put her in Reflex or Refresh accessories to get this skill up more, just so that she can use more and more champions. So it's kind of like this is a strategy move. I'm going to place it on head 1 so that when head 2 poisons me, the poisons are going to go back to head 1, because I want head 1 to be getting all the damage as quick as possible, right? So this is kind of how this passive works. So it is strategic. 30% instead of 50% when used against bosses. Of course, they had to throw that in there. It would be too good any other way. And then whenever somebody's fills a turn meter of the enemy under hex, whenever someone fills the turn meter of an enemy under hex placed by this champion, the champion's turn meter will be filled instead. So if you, Arena for example, place it on somebody and then Arbiter goes and boosts everyone's turn meter, this champion's getting their turn meter. So you're kind of constantly pushing that turn meter. If you use it on a boss and that boss gets turn meter by you placing a skill or you placing a debuff, and therefore they get more turn meter. They get more turn meter by the damage you inflict. You have a 30 to up to 50% chance of getting that turn meter yourself, which is pretty darn decent for some of the Faction Wars bosses or some of the Doom Tower bosses. And that only happens though when Kurato's on your team of stealing that turn meter. The A3 here, Dance of Time, this is amazing. Decreases the cooldown of all ally skills by 3. It's kind of like in between a Renegade and a Kaimar. Kaimar does all skills, so if you're on a 4 or 5 skill cooldown, you still have a cooldown of 1 or 2 turns by doing this skill, but it's better than a Renegade, and she has more usability elsewhere, right? But also increases the cooldown of all enemy skills by 3 turns. Again, it's not like a Warlord that does all skills on cooldown, but it's 3 skills on cooldown. So on a 4 or 5 turn cooldown skill, it'll only be 3 turns. But on a 3 turn down skill, it's maxed. So that's pretty darn good. It's kind of like a Warlord and kind of like a Renegade all together, or Kaimar, all in one, which is pretty darn decent. Booked to a 5-turn cooldown. And then the passive pushes a Veil on this champ for 2 turns at the start of every round. Makes it perfect for Hydra. This champ is immune to all debuffs if under Veil. Okay, so you cannot get debuffed if you're under Veil. Hydra, there's the you cannot be resisted kind of skills, so block debuffs doesn't work. So we got to see if Hydra actually beats this or not. The way I read it, Hydra cannot debuff you, which makes this a perfect Hydra champion. And then only available when Kurato's on your team, but whenever Veil is placed on an enemy, has a 75% chance of stealing the buff. So this happens before the buff is placed. So when Arena, for example, you're facing a Rector Drath, and Rector Drath or Duchess put on that Veil on the whole team, you have a 75% chance to steal that Veil when you're pairing with a Kurato. And then an all-battle aura by 60 as well. So, we talked about Kurato. We're going to jump all these champions and go straight to the fusion, which is Kurato the Fox Hunter. So he has a 3-hit A1 that places Weaken, which is great all around. Fire Knight and Hydra and everything else, placing a debuff Weaken. 20 booked up to 30% chance. It's not strong, but you have 3 chances to do it. Get some support masteries on and increasing that chance. A2, 1 enemy, stun, which is great. for 2 turns. Not many stuns do 2 turns, which is always awesome. But grants an extra turn and resets the skill if Yumiko is on the same team and this skill kills an enemy. Right? So, at a 3-turn cooldown, we're getting an extra turn. We're using it again. This is like a Septimus kind of A1, except we're using it in A2 nuke. A2 nuke, A2 nuke, A2 nuke. And constantly just pinging them one at a time as long as Yumiko is on your team, which is amazing because you want her on the team. Suppression Ward attacks all enemies, puts up that block active skills, 80% booked up to 100, cannot be resisted if Yumiko's on that team. So again, we need accuracy to place the stun, we need accuracy to place the weaken, but no accuracy needed if we pair her with Yumiko on the same team. And then the passive here, damage inflicted by this champ cannot be decreased by any passive or masteries, except for passives by the boss, but also you cannot increase your damage by any passives or masteries. So what we need to figure out, and I think this needs to be play tested, and I'm not on the test server, so I don't know, but some play test needs to happen to be like, what does this mean? And as we know, when we get into some of the champions masteries, increased damage on the first hit. We have increased damage when full health, increased damage when low health. All of these skills increase damage when you have dead allies. All of these masteries should not, the way I read it, should not make sense. So therefore, crit rate is just a stat increase. Crit damage is a stat increase. Life Drinker heals based on the damage you inflict. That's not damage based. War Master Helm, War Master is increasing bonus damage. That would no longer work. Helm Smasher is just ignoring defense. That doesn't necessarily increase damage. It just ignores defense. Or Flawless Execution increases stats. So doing stats on him might be a little he might go defense and support only, to be honest. Get the extra counterattacks when hit, get the extra accuracy, and just totally ignore offense altogether. That might be the way to build a champion like this. And then an all-ally crit by 20%. So, always good. Let's go back. The dwarf, Brogar, this is the first dwarf you finally see the increased resistance buff. Okay, so increased resistance and increased speed for 2 turns. Booked to a 4-turn cooldown, which is pretty good. A1, single hitter, increased defense for 1 turn with the lowest HP. Okay. Won't place it on this champion. 100% chance if you crit. You obviously want to crit. It's an HP-based champion. Removes 1 random debuff from all ally, and then places a shield on all allies, 20% of this champ's HP. So 100k HP, you're putting a 20,000 HP shield on them. That's pretty darn good. Anytime you have an HP of this champion and a high percent is always good. And then allies receive 10% less damage, from champions whose resistance is lower or equal to theirs. So by putting 50% more resistance on your team, having somebody also in all battle resistance by 50, you're boosting your team's resistance high, 2, 3, 400 potentially easily with these skills, and therefore you're getting 10% less damage on anyone on your team, which is pretty good. So having him on his team, I think, will help in a lot of the harder content. Sir Armitage, attack-based champ, force-based champ, double hitter A1. Okay, so now we're getting into the epics. A lot more easier to deal with for a lot of us. First hit has a 40% chance, book to 50, decreased defense. Second hit, decreased speed. Okay, so it's kind of a decreased defense, decreased speed. Double hitter, 50% on both, which could work. Removes all debuffs from this champ, then attacks all enemies. Okay, so if you have a decreased attack, a decrease whatever on you, you're going to just cleanse it all and then attack them. All allies, so we'll have to see what the damage is on him to see if he's viable or not. He, she, whatever it is. A3, single target, ignores 30% of the defense, places a 50% or an increased attack and an increased crit damage on this buff if it kills an enemy, okay, which cannot be removed. So it's kind of like I'm going to nuke somebody, get these buffs, and then I'm going to go into my A2 and then nuke everybody and do that much more damage. Increase crit damage, increase attack. Like this to me is a viable nuker, if you ask me. So, and it also cannot be removed, which is great. I'm not even going to try Thoracic. Dark Elf, because we need more of those. Epic, Force Space Champion. Forces are always good. Double hitter A1, 25, booked up to 45% chance of increasing the duration of one random debuff. Always good. Each hit has that chance. So 45, 45, almost 50% chance. So a double hitter could proc twice. And now you're increasing 2 random debuffs of this champion. Put on counter attack, put on ally attack, and this champion's always A1ing, right? We're always pushing and pushing and pushing, which is good for an epic. A2, a triple hit, single target triple hit, but removing the random buff on the A2. Okay, so one, we're increasing the duration of debuffs, and now we're decreasing the duration of buffs. So this is like an Inquisitor on the A1. Every hit has that chance to decrease it by 1 tick. In this case, you have a triple hit, so 3 chances, boom, 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 40, booked up to 60% chance of removing a random debuff altogether. It's not a level, it's just the debuff altogether, it looks like. And then an A3, all enemy attack, 50, booked up to 75% chance of placing a decreased resistance. And then inflicts 10% more damage on targets whose resistance is lower than this champion's accuracy. Okay, so decrease the resistance on all enemies. Now all of a sudden she's putting out more damage. So if this champion has more accuracy than their resistance, she's doing more damage. You decrease it. Now you're able to do more damage on the A2 and the A1. That's kind of strategy, how to use it. Hopefully the AI works that way. Hendrisia, void-based, high elves, defense-based champ, which is good. Single target, single attack, decreased crit damage on a champion. Okay. Single target, 100% chance to stun if they don't have any active buffs on them. Okay. 75% for 2 turns. So if they don't have any active buffs, it's a 1 turn. But if they have active buffs, it's a 2 turn. So if they got to increase attack from Arbiter, you have a 2 turn stun possible. And 75 booked up to 100%. So that's pretty darn good. You don't really want to strip their buffs because you want them to kind of have buffs. A3, attack all enemies, decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns, booked up to 100%. Increases the duration of all increased defense on allies for 1 turn as well. Okay, so that's pretty decent. But again, it's situational. Do they have a block debuffs on them? You're going to want to use that A3 first, cleanse it. Hopefully they put up something like a shield, and then maybe you have that 2-turn stun ability. So it's kind of like one of those, do you use Mind Prison first or do you use Point of Justice first? You kind of have to figure out. It is situational. At the start of every turn, places a 50% ally protect for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest HP, and then places a strengthen and an increased defense on this champ as well. So that's pretty darn good. It does come on a 5-turn cooldown. So it's kind of like it happens once and then 5 turns later it'll happen again. But and then we already talked about Corrado, Filia, I don't even know how to say it, Dwarf. You're going to need 4 of her to fuse into the fusion, which kind of sucks because you don't want all those dupes. Like if you only get 3, kind of sucks. But her skills are actually not bad. Like I personally would want a 5th of her because I would want to keep 1 of her. Double hit A1, decrease the target's max HP. So those skills are automatically good. Decreasing max HP on an A1 times 2 of the damage. Build her with damage. She's dishing out, 10% of the HP times 2. On bosses like Scarab King, this is great. This is awesome. Also, A1, 1 enemy, full deplete of turn meter. Again, Scarab King Can be depleted by turn meter, 100% chance, 4-turn cooldown, full depletion of turn meter. Awesome. Attacks all enemies, fills this champion by 15% and heals them by 15% of the damage inflicted. If this is a crit, right? So we get some increased heal, increased damage. So 15% of the damage inflicted on an all enemy attack. Awesome again. Just to get that turn meter back and then to go more and more and more. And if this champion it has 2 or fewer buffs at the start of the turn, increase attack, increase crit damage on this champ for 1 turn. So let's give them nothing, ideally, like let's not buffer. And then she's nuking pretty hard. So I think she's viable. I think she's useful in certain situations if you need her. If you're not going to have the resources to go for this fusion, I would recommend going for the fusion. Then keep one of her. Definitely helpful. And then, of course, the 4 rares. I'm not going to go too much into detail. Places a shield, whatever. Decreases their attack. Could be useful on all allies. 100% chance. That's actually quite decent for an epic. If that's what you need, you don't have anyone. That skill alone, I think, is usable on a 3-turn cooldown. And then places that ally protect on this buff champ. And then a continuous heal as well. Medicus. Double hit A1, whatever. All enemies decrease speed. Again, pretty darn decent on a 3-turn cooldown. 70% chance. And then similar idea. Increase defense for 2 turns. And then increase speed. Also increase speed for 2 turns. So increase defense and speed. Rare, Bannerlord, Spymaster. 40, booked up to 60% chance of decreasing duration of 2 random buffs on the target, which is pretty good. For an epic, that's actually quite good. And then a block buffs all enemies, like Hydra, hello, 60% chance on an epic, on a rare. Like, that's very good to block buffs on a rare. And then a counter attack on this champ for 2 turns. And then when ascended, 75% chance of putting provoke. So it doesn't really work on bosses. On a 5-turn cooldown, not so much. But like this A2 alone of blocking all buffs at a 60% chance in a rare is pretty darn good. Like epics do better, but for a rare, that's pretty good if you're struggling. And then Thugor here, last champion, Barbarian, increased attack. If it's a crit, so you're at a crit and then you place the attack, 20%, 30% chance to stun, and then increase the cooldowns of each target skill by 2 turns. So an all ally hit, 40% chance of increasing the cooldown of all the skills by 2 turns. Pretty darn good for a rare. So they are all good in their own way. Again, other champions, epics, and legendaries do this better. But if you need someone like that and you're struggling, if you're early game, these rares are actually very good to invest in. Like I know on my free-to-play, I might be not going for the champ. I want to go for these rares and epics. I want 1 epic and 1 of each rare, and I think I'm good. Alrighty, so there you have it. That's the breakdown. Thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully that helps. I'm looking forward to it. We'll catch you on the next video. Take care, everyone.